Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear viewers, today we are very fortunate to have Dr. Monzer Kahf, who needs no introduction in the world of Islamic finance, who is a top-notch expert in Islamic finance and also a leading Islamic economist. He is based out of Westminster, California in the USA. He has been a professor at Urmuk University, Jordan, and he does independent consultation, lecturing and training in Islamic finance. He has been the head of Islamic Research and Training Institute, which is the research division of Islamic Development Bank in Jeddah. He has won the prestigious Islamic Development Bank Prize in Islamic Economics in the year 2001, and he has also received the Presidential Award for the Best Student, passing out from a Syrian university. So let us welcome Dr. Monzer Kahf, alhamdulillah, to the show.
Thank you very much. If I may make a little correction, I headed the research division in the Islamic Research and Training Institute. I did not head the institute itself.
Okay, right. So let's go to the detailed discussion on Islamic finance. So sir, what we would like to know from you on the very outset is, what does Islamic finance mean to a country like India, and also how does people understand the difference between Islamic finance and conventional finance, or Islamic banking and conventional banking, from a very layman's perspective?
Well, as a matter of fact, for India, Islamic finance means a lot. It means for every Hindu in India, it means a lot for every Christian in India, and it means a lot for every Muslim in India. Because Islamic finance is not at all religion-based. It is rules-based. A set of rules. Once this set of rules is placed in the banking system will work in a better functional way. This is what it is. And here, if I start from the beginning, Islamic finance means making finance doing its proper job without bringing nuances, bringing problems, bringing hesitations to the finance system. Now, how is that done? Simply by linking all finance transactions to real market transactions. Now, again, this means an important thing. It means that Islamic finance is no more than what every layman in India, in the Arabia, in America, in everywhere knows. Islamic finance means provision of goods on sale basis, provision of utilities and usufruct of long-term assets on ijara basis, provision of capital for new projects on musharaka basis. So that is then Islamic finance uses sale on credit, uses leasing, as we all know it, uses sharing contract to make new product partnerships and the like, as we all know it. So this is as what is there in the commercial law in India. How is the commercial law in India defines sale on credit? It says you give the commodity now, the goods now, and you pay later, either one payment in the future or on installment. And this is what is Islamic finance. It's exactly nothing beyond that. The Islamic finance institution will buy and sell in a financial sense, not in a commercial sense. This is very important. Let me say this thing, describing the transaction. A customer wants to buy a new car, or a company wants to buy a new machine, comes to the Islamic bank after they select what they want to buy completely, and they negotiate the price. They come to the bank and tell it that here is the machine or the car. I know the price of it, and I got a bill, like pro forma bill, what they call. I got an initial offer from the seller. He is going to sell it to me for this price. So please buy this car for this machine, and I will buy it from you on installment at a higher price. So you make profit. Islamic finance is to make profit through finance. It is not charitable finance. That's a different institution. Zakah and awqaf and other things, these are institutions for charitable finance. But we are talking about profit-making finance. So the Islamic bank will buy the car or the machine on your request. It does not buy it to show it in a showroom and then find a customer for it. You already asked the bank and you promised the bank to give it to it. That's that it will buy it and you buy it from the bank. Now, with that, we are in fact within the laws of banking here in India. We are not in any violation of the laws of banking, because the laws say that a bank is not permitted to practice trading of goods and services. And we don't practice trading because we only buy on your request. We do not buy on our own decision. We do not buy to make trading with the goods. So there is no trading in Islamic bank. There is financing. Now, as I described it exactly, when the controller of federal banks in the United States was asked in writing about this transaction in 1999, the answer was, this is a regular banking transaction. It is not a transaction that violates the banking laws here in India or in the United States. What we do is regular banking transactions, because the buy is not a commercial buy, it's a financial buy. And the sell is a financial sell. It is not a commercial sell. This difference is very important, and this what makes and characterizes Islamic finance and Islamic financial institutions, Islamic banks. What merchants do is something different. They buy on their own decision and they expose their goods for customers to see them and buy from them. An Islamic bank does not do that. It buys on request from the customer and sells to that customer who asks for financing. It is a financing buy and a financing sell. Therefore, it is not subject in America to the sales tax. It is subject to the interest tax. It's like interest. It's like interest, but it is better than interest, because when you give a loan on interest, that loan may be used for any objective. Not all the time it is used only to buy goods. When you make Islamic finance, since you don't give cash, you don't give loans, every single Islamic finance transaction will always be connected to the real market. There will be no excessive finance. The crisis of 2008 was caused by excessive finance. You cannot make excessive finance if you apply Islamic banking.
Yes, sir. And building upon what you have explained to us, the global Islamic finance industry is fast approaching the $3 trillion mark now. But the irony is that India is the second largest Muslim population in the world after Indonesia, and it is fast approaching Indonesia in the number. But nothing serious has happened in Islamic finance front in India. And this has been mainly because of the legal framework in which we are living, or because as far as Islamic banking is concerned, the Banking Act is a hindrance. But what I understand is that there are many other areas in Islamic finance which the Islamic finance entrepreneurs, if they wanted, could have leveraged, but that has not happened. So how do you look at this scenario from a global perspective?
Well, I mean, if you are that the laws in India do not stand as hindrance, I don't believe that.
Okay.
I think it's not the law, rather it is the individual understanding of the law. Because the law says banks should not practice trading of goods and services. And Islamic banks do not practice trading of goods and services. So exactly the same. So we are fully in conformity with the law in India. When we buy, this is a financial buy. And when we sell, this is a financial sell. Because we do not buy without a customer coming and asking for finance. We do not buy.
Right.
So we are not trading goods and services. It is the understanding, honestly speaking, and I'm sorry to have said it this way, it is the understanding of some individuals in the high ranks of the Federal Reserve of India, including the gentleman who was in the conference in 2006, and he was Muslim also, from the Federal Reserve of India, who said that the law does not allow banks to buy, and in Islamic banks we buy and sell. I told him then, in that conference in Delhi, in 2006, I told him, your understanding is incorrect. That is not what Islamic banks do. They buy a financial buy and sell a financial sell, because they do not buy before a customer comes and asks for financing to buy a given goods. So without that, they don't buy. Then it's incorrect, really, to claim that the law do not allow. It's the understanding of some people.
Right.
And I am willing, and I accept, and I'll pledge. Let's establish an Islamic bank, and I pledge on its behalf that we will never buy and put in a showroom any goods. Never. We will only finance buy and finance sell. So we buy to finance based on a request of finance, not a request of buy and sell. Okay, so I tell the Federal Reserve, now and everywhere, I told the same in 2006 in that conference, we do not give buy and sell goods. That's not the job of Islamic banks, and Islamic banks can live in conformity with all the laws and regulations of the Federal Reserve of India. Okay, this is one. Two, are there other institutions? Yes, definitely there are other institutions. And honestly speaking, I believe that Islam is not only, Islamic finance is not for Muslims alone. So I really appreciate, and I'm glad to hear that Muslims in India are the second largest Muslim group in the world, but that does not affect really. We should establish Muslims, Hindu, Christian, Jews, Buddhists, whoever we are, we should establish Islamic banks, because Islamic banks and Islamic financial institutions are better for the economy. Now, can we create other institutions? Yes, there are Islamic finance companies. We can create Islamic finance companies.
Right.
And Islamic finance companies are permitted under the laws of India to take deposits from investors.
Right.
Within certain limits. Of course, there are conditions and limits, and that is the way life is everywhere in the world. Because everywhere in the world we live under laws. So we need Islamic finance companies to provide finance and to be able to accept investment from investors on the basis of partnership, sleeping partnership. Those investors will be called sleeping or dormant partners. And there are laws sometimes put a given number. You cannot have more than 100 sleeping investor in a in a finance company. We abide, we go by that. So we need finance companies that are based on Islamic finance. We need, especially for housing, and this is easy to be
So
done.
in a venture capital contest,
Yes.
this could be
We
limited partners.
We need also cooperative companies or cooperative organizations to provide finance for the mass. We need also microfinance, which can easily be done in India under the existing laws. There is no need. I always claim that there is no need for any change in the laws.
Right.
What we need is understanding of the law, not the law itself. We need microfinance, and microfinance can always be supported by the zakah to lower the cost. The issue in microfinance, the main issue is that the poor needs one, immediate help. He also needs investment to stand on his own, and he also needs education to know how to manage his finance. The poor usually lacks this.
Right.
Lacks the immediate needs and lacks also the education to manage his own finance. And of course, we need to give him some resources to make him stand up. Now, zakah can help in that, along with microfinance institution. In this way, the microfinance will not cost the poor more than what is done for the rich in the market, in the business market. It will be about the same prevailing rate of interest in the country. We have an example which is important, in fact, and it's nearby here, under your nose, in Bangladesh.
Right.
We have Grameen Bank. Grameen Bank is based on donations from NGOs and other international institutions and from the government of Bangladesh, but it charges interest rate up to 54% sometimes to the poor, which is at least 3 times the interest rate the rich pays to the banks in Bangladesh. Okay, now compare this with the Islamic finance offered by the Bangladesh Islamic Bank. The Bangladesh Islamic Bank depends in its Islamic finance project on 2 channels in addition to the funds that need to be given and returned. they depend on zakah resources, and they depend on awqaf. The Bangladesh Islamic Bank created a foundation which is awqaf. And the Islamic word for the foundation is awqaf, created a foundation whereby the revenue of the properties of this foundation can be used to support microfinance, provide salaries, provide expenses, and so on. So with zakah, you help the poor directly with immediate needs. You can also help the poor with capital assets, small capital assets. And with the help of the awqaf, you can educate the poor. And in that way, you do not charge the poor the cost of this education. Grameen Bank charges the poor the cost of this education, because educators have to be qualified.
Yeah.
And usually educators are from the middle class, not from the poor, because they are educated, they have university degrees, very often they have masters, not only university degrees, higher degrees. So you need good people with good qualification to help the poor raise their level of ability to manage their own finance. With that, the Islamic Bank of Bangladesh does not charge the poor for this cost, whereas Grameen Bank charges the poor.
Right.
This is why the rate of interest is high in Grameen Bank, but the rate of markup in the Islamic Bank, project of microfinance is low, is normal. The same rate that is charged in the bank itself. It's not a higher rate. Okay.
So basically what you're saying is that what we need is out of the box thinking and some aggressive entrepreneurship, rather than saying that the law is the hindrance, because if we don't have any critical mass in the market, nobody is going to bother. Is that the case?
That is exactly correct. We need, you see why it is called Islamic finance, because it happened that we Muslims started it.
Yeah.
But it's not really Islamic in its rules. It's normal, like anybody that can do it. So we need good entrepreneurs from among ourselves, because it is ours now. It is Islamic finance. Every part of the world knows it as Islamic finance. So definitely we need here in India to take the lead in having aggressive entrepreneurs, creating Islamic investment companies, and then invite investors with us, and creating housing cooperatives. I have a good example in Toronto of the Islamic Housing Cooperative, which grew and became one of the very big corporations, and it provides housing to many Muslims in Canada, and also to non-Muslims. And you don't need to restrict it to Muslims, really, it will be to everybody. So we need housing cooperatives, housing finance cooperatives. And we need other cooperatives to finance other things like car and customers and other needs. In addition to the microfinance, we need microfinance institutions that can help the poor.
Okay, so talking more about the Indian economy. Indian economy is an agrarian economy with 70% of its population directly or indirectly employed in the agricultural sector, and 14% of the GDP is contributed by agriculture. But what's happening in India is, over the last few years, the contribution of agriculture to GDP is falling, and farmer suicides are increasing. On an average, 15,000 people commit suicide every year in different states of India because of the debt burden placed on by the banks on them. They are not able to repay. Maybe it's because of the bad monsoon, bad crop, and they lose the land which is made as a collateral to the bank, etc., etc. And it's a catastrophic situation. So this is a big burning issue in India these days. So what Islamic finance has got to offer to the most dominant sector of India, and how it can revive the agricultural sector, because it's what's happening is fairly inhumane in the very face.
Okay. Well, you see, the nature of Islamic finance is development because it always relates every finance to the real market transaction.
Yeah.
It puts a cap also on the finance, which is natural cap that you cannot finance more than the price of the goods that you are financing.
Okay.
So this is one. Now, for farming, the seasonal finance
Yes.
can be offered by Islamic finance on local basis.
Okay.
We need some localization instead of major banks or major institutions come into in helping the small farmers. Those who are committing suicide are not big farmers. Definitely.
Yes, definitely.
They are small farmers and they are under debt. So to work in that environment, you need localized Islamic finance institutions based on cooperation.
Right.
Basically, the cooperative, I don't know how strong the cooperative movement in India, but we need really cooperative agricultural finance organizations.
Right.
With this, Islamic finance has a lot to offer because of the nature of Islamic finance in being more moral.
Right.
Honestly speaking, we do have examples where Grameen Bank collectors were going and destroying the house of the debtor, but that never happened in the other example in the Bangladesh microfinance project. Never happened. Okay. The reason is when the Islamic finance, because of its moral commitment and because of implementation on the local level, then the local people will take care of that all the time.
Okay.
And the local people will be all the time able to help the one who is in trouble. And then explain the issue in a good way to the central or to the larger organization. And since you have multiplicity of resources, not only the resource that aims at giving finance and make a return on it, you have also the fund that is free, distribute zakah. You have the awqaf that whose return will be also used for that. So with this combination, we can make a lot in the Indian sector, in agriculture, with small farmers. I think what we need in this regard, we need a pioneer project.
All right.
And I really, honestly speaking, I understand you told me that the Jama'at Islami is having some media and some projects.
Yes.
Jama'at Islami should start local projects. I mean, there is central to just help the localities.
Right.
But I don't want central organization. We need it to be local.
Decentralized model.
Decentralized completely. The center's job will be only to give support when needed. But we can do a lot by these local small cooperatives among farmers.
Right.
And that, I think, what we should do. And tomorrow morning, please, are you from Jama'at Islam?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so please do that tomorrow morning.
Okay.
We need tomorrow morning to have some organizations in our localities.
Inshallah.
Everywhere.
Inshallah. And if we have all these kind of an organizational setup, what specific tools in Islamic finance we would be using, like Salam, Muzara, Musaqat? How would that work?
I think the most important thing that we can use, definitely Muzara'a can be a way, but we need not only a tool that allows us to make profit. We need also with it to incorporate the concept of zakat.
Zakat.
Give you an example in Sudan. The Zakah Fund in Sudan wanted to finance the small farmers who were in difficulty. So they made a project. The total cost of the project was really trivial. was about $300,000, and they helped with it more than 7,000 families. The way they helped them is to sell them the seeds and fertilizers, some of the inputs.
Yeah.
So they sold the input to them, and without forcing them to specific date of payment.
Okay.
They said the payment, we get it when you got the harvest.
Okay, and sell it in the market.
Right. And the payment was on the basis of loan. This is Zakah fund.
Okay.
So they gave loan without any increment.
Right.
But look at the result. The result was that most of these farmers, at the end of the season, were able to pay Zakah themselves. Out of their product, the total Zakah collected came to be about 80% of the amount of loans, the Zakah only.
Right.
Now, loans were returned 100%. And usually, when you deal with small farmers, especially on community basis, local community basis, the payback is very high.
Very high.
Everywhere in the world, not only among Muslims. In South America, the payback is above 98%. So the payback is very high when you deal on local community basis, because everybody knows everybody. And this is what they did.
And that works on the basis of kafalat, mutual guarantee system.
Yeah, it's like mutual, without being formal mutual guarantee. You don't need
A peer
that
pressure
formal.
sort of a thing.
It's the peer pressure, the living together that you wouldn't like to.
Sense of community.
Uniquely that you don't pay, but the others are paying. But the most important factor or result here rather was that they were able to pay zakah. They become rich, in other words.
Okay.
About 80% of them were able to pay zakah. So they not only paid the loans, they paid also zakah to the institution. And so the institution itself became more able to give in the future more. These kind of small projects, and especially when you use the zakah fund and the awqaf to support the funds of that are given with the return, condition of return, there is an income in it, a profit for the institution. So that makes a big difference with this support, because it's more of a community work rather than simply a finance work.
Okay. Right, great. And also, sir, about the micro, small and medium enterprises sector in India. It accounts for 70% of all the employment generated in the industrial sector, contributes to 50% of the GDP. And yet, in all surveys, it is pointed out that the single most hindrance for the growth of SMEs is the non-availability of bank credit on time. So, if we bring in Islamic finance into this context, it can be having a massive effect on the Indian economy, right?
Yeah, but that is provided we localize the banking service.
So decentralization is very, very important.
When we localize the bank, and in this Islamic finance cooperatives can help, probably more than banks even.
Okay.
And this can be done under the existing laws quickly.
Right.
And even under the existing mentality of the Federal Reserve of India. So they can be done easily and quickly under the existing situation.
Right. And so what about the infrastructure development? Because India is requiring around $500 billion every year to keep up with the infrastructure requirements. So specifically about sukuk and all, which are used in a large scale.
Let me give you this example. Recently, the new president after election in Nigeria, Mr. Buhari, wanted to tap on the local resources. Said, we don't want anything from outside. We know that there are many people who have liquidity, but they are hiding it. So he offered 100 billion naira. The naira there is maybe the rupiah here is about 5 naira, because for the dollar the naira is about 300 naira for
To
the
$1,
dollar.
all right.
You have about 60 for the dollar.
67.
Right? 67. So probably a little less than 5. Naira will equal rupiah. So when you talk about 100 billion, you are talking about a good amount. That is for the roads. And you know what happened? About 3 weeks ago only, these sukuk were launched.
Okay.
All the amount was covered.
All right.
All of it was covered. Sukuk to build roads, build and repair roads, and all of it was covered. So I am definite, and India has also a lot of liquidity.
Right.
There is no doubt about that. But people hide their liquidity. If they find good project that they see its results, and if they find that it is done without corruption, definitely they will come out and take it out.
Right.
I think if you want to sit and cry and wait for the Gulf money to come, it's not going to come. Period. It's not going to come. The Gulf money goes to America and Europe and Canada and Australia. It's not going to come here. Okay? So what is needed is really an idea that tap on the abilities of our masses. The masses in India here can definitely help in that. And the idea of sukuk is a lot more developmental than the idea of bonds.
Right.
What is the basic difference? You cannot issue sukuk for a debt for the budget. Never.
Okay.
You can only issue sukuk to build a project.
Right.
To make new roads, to make new dams, to make new bridges and so on. So that is to make developmental things. And it's not difficult at all. I'm sure, I'm definite, if Indian government and also state governments decide to issue sukuk for the infrastructures, everybody will support them.
Right.
And I'm definite they will gain support. Within a week almost, all the sukuk that were issued in Nigeria were covered. Okay?
Right. So what happened in India was that many big corporates like Reliance Industries, which is a global conglomerate, they actually came up with Sharia-friendly, Sharia-tolerant products. Like they launched a particular insurance plan, ULIP, in the market, Iman. And Taurus, other asset management companies also came up with Sharia-compliant mutual funds. And there was an index on the stock market which was a Sharia-based index. But all these products did not take off in the Indian market. This is another irony that we are talking about, because whatever is available in the market, there is a deep-rooted thinking in the minds of people that stock markets are not actually Sharia-compliant. It's more towards gambling, speculation. So can you elucidate the difference between pure gambling, which is not allowed in Islam, and the Sharia-compliant market activities?
I'm not much in happiness with stock markets.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, yes, most stock markets or most transactions in stock markets are gambling-like.
Right.
Maurice Allais used to propose, I think he probably is still alive, we checked just a few years ago in 2013 that he was alive. So probably he's more than 100 years old now. Maurice Allais is the winner, the only French economist who gained Nobel Prize.
Oh.
Okay, the only French economist. And he used to say all the time that we really don't need stock market to open 24/7. Now around the globe, you have 24/7 in the trading of shares and bonds. you needed to open only for 2 weeks, 2 hours a week.
All right.
We don't need more than 2 hours a week, because all these transactions, they are really not beneficial to the economy. We need some liquidity in the economy, so that if you find a better opportunity, you sell your shares and go into an IPOs, or into, that is, new company established or being expanded, or go into another business. But simply to be a negative investor, sitting, dorming at home, and someone runs your fund in a mutual fund in the stock market, that's not a good business anyway, and that doesn't add much to the economy. I believe in the direct action,
All right.
not in the
Real
stock
economic
market.
activities.
Yes, really economic development action. That is through these cooperatives of farmers, cooperatives of small businesses in each locality, and then seeking financing and getting finance, and they will get from their own resources and from their surrounding. I believe in that, because that creates development.
Yeah.
That improves the life of everyone. Stock market does not improve the life of everyone.
Right.
And it does not. As a matter of fact, it does not. So I'm not much really enthusiastic
About the stock
about
markets,
it,
yeah.
nor about the Islamic index. Yani, and I know this Islamic index in Mumbai, but I'm not really enthusiastic about it at all. Most Islamic indexes really have some defects even in them. But anyway, that's a different issue. I think we need the direct action.
Right.
You see, we passed, before the mass media and the social media, we were living on the elite. Now we need to live among the masses themselves, not on the elitist concept. These mutual funds, all of them are elitist concept.
Yeah.
Concept of finance managers. I don't want that. I think what we need is direct action with the poor in the field.
Sir, regarding the development of Islamic finance, we must be having different case studies. You discussed about Bangladesh. There must be case studies in GCC countries, European countries, USA, Canada. So is it possible for us to trace a path for the Indian market, like this is how we should be proceeding, this should come first, like that should follow this? Will you be able to tell us?
I tell you one thing, I don't want to reduce the importance, because it looks from what I said that there's no importance of investment in stock market and so on. No, there are attempts, and these attempts are good.
Right.
But they are not the attempts that will bring the solution to the grassroots.
Right.
So to bring solution to the grassroots, I think we need to look at experiences that relate more to the grassroots.
Right.
For instance, the experience of the Jordan Islamic Bank. The Jordan Islamic Bank, by its nature and by the structure of the economy in Jordan, it's not an elitist economy.
Okay.
It's not an economy that there is a big debt. There are few rich, very few very rich, but these are really not part of the economy, not part of the society. They live all overseas, and their wealth is all outside Jordan.
Yeah.
So, but they are Jordanian, and they come at the time of election or at the time of changing the government. They become ministers and so on. But the bank, Jordan Islamic Bank, worked with the middle class and lower middle class, the SMEs, or the part of M of the SMEs,
Yeah.
the medium enterprises. So they worked with them, and they did a lot of good job. For instance, working with the taxi drivers. Within 3-4 years, the taxi drivers they worked with became owners of their taxis, because they worked with them on partnership basis. That we buy the taxi on your behalf, and we give it to you, and each day, whatever you collect, you deposit. There is an amount that is assigned. You can withdraw from that for your own living, but then you deposit the remaining in the bank, in the local branches of the bank, and at the end of each month, we calculate how much you deposited. You become owner of the car for that much. In other words, you are buying it from your own saving. So within a few years, 3 to 4 years, you become owner of the car. And that experiment helped many taxi drivers that they become owners. They definitely became better off later on. So we need these kind of experiments to do on the local level, and they can be done. Yani all we need is some collection of small funds locally, local funds. And once we do that, I think we give examples then to other localities. I really believe in that, in the grassroots work.
Right. Thank you. 1 minute. So we will be trying to go